Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today we're diving into a word, well, it's a word that packs a punch, apoplectic. It's one of those words that just sounds, well, powerful. And we've got all sorts of interesting stuff to dig into, from dictionary definitions to some surprising historical tidbits, even a little peek into how we handle those really big emotions. Our mission today is to, well, unpack apoplectic, figure out how it works, where it comes from, and maybe uncover a few surprises along the way about this, well, rather dramatic word and the feeling it really captures.
Yeah, it's a word that it definitely grabs your attention, doesn't it? And we want to, give everyone a clear understanding of this potent little word.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. When we look at the core meaning today, Merriam-Webster tells us apoplectic basically means extremely enraged. That kind of anger that just, well, consumes you.
Right. And what's interesting, our source, Make Your Point, points out that it's often more than just anger, isn't it? There's this sense of someone being so furious that it's almost like they're physically overwhelmed by it, like their body just can't contain that emotion.
Oh, absolutely. And the synonyms that Merriam-Webster lists really drive that point home. We're talking ballistic, foaming at the mouth, furious words that, well, they paint a picture of someone really losing it.
They do, don't they? Like, they're not just upset, they're completely beside themselves. And then you get some real gems in there, like horn mad.
Yeah.
That one just sounds, I don't know, wonderfully old-fashioned and wild.
It does. It does. It conjures up this image of, like, a charging bull or something. And then there's surety, which is, well, Merriam-Webster describes it as chiefly British. Adds a little cultural flavor to that intense annoyance, doesn't it? Like being really, really cross about something.
Yeah, it's fascinating how different cultures express that feeling of being thoroughly ticked off, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And just to cover all our bases, the adverb form is apoplectically. Imagine someone pacing, apoplectically after a frustrating phone call. It really sets the scene.
It does, it does. But here's where things get a little unexpected. You see, while we mostly hear apoplectic describing extreme anger these days, it actually has this whole other past life in the medical world. Merriam-Webster points out this historical connection to apoplexy, which we tend to know today as a stroke.
Oh, so it wasn't always about this explosive anger. That's interesting.
Exactly. And Wikipedia tells us that from the 14th century all the way to the 19th century, apoplexy was a much broader term. It actually referred to any sudden death that began with a rapid loss of consciousness, especially if, the person died shortly after.
Wow, that's a pretty big umbrella term. So conditions that we now understand as completely separate things, they were all lumped together under this apoplexy label.
Precisely. Strokes, yes, but also things like a ruptured aortic aneurysm, even a sudden heart attack, they could have all been called apoplexy back then. Medical knowledge simply wasn't advanced enough to pinpoint the exact cause.
That's pretty remarkable. So where does this word apoplexy even come from?
Well, the origins are quite revealing. Wikipedia traces it back to the ancient Greek apoplexia, which meant a striking away. And Make Your Point connects this meaning to that feeling of being totally hit or completely struck down. Imagine witnessing that sudden loss of consciousness. It must have felt like some unseen force had just, knocked someone out.
A striking away. That's a powerful image. It really captures that suddenness, that overwhelming nature of what people were seeing, doesn't it?
It does. And it's interesting that even in modern medicine, the term hasn't completely disappeared. Wikipedia mentions that it's still used sometimes with specific adjectives to indicate, the location of a sudden internal bleed, like, for example, pituitary apoplexy. So that core sense of a sudden impactful event happening internally, it persists in specific medical language.
Okay, so we've got this historical medical baggage, which, as we've said, is mostly in the past when it comes to everyday use. And then we have this vivid contemporary meaning of, extreme anger. It sounds like the figurative use really took over, didn't it?
Absolutely. Make Your Point emphasizes that while the medical meaning technically exists, when you hear apoplectic today, chances are it's describing someone who's absolutely incandescent with rage.
Right. And we've got some great examples of that. Merriam-Webster reminds us of Giuliani's apoplectic reaction to an acquittal back in 2000. And I love the image of Boileau, the literary critic, getting so apoplectic during a debate that he lost his voice. Now, that's some serious anger, the kind that has a physical impact.
It is, isn't it? It's like that anger just takes over. And those examples really demonstrate just how much weight the word carries. But it's not just a relic of the past, is it? The examples that Merriam-Webster provides show us how relevant and how alive the word is today. It's used to describe those really intense reactions to everything, from sports to current events, all with that same level of fury.
Exactly. And make your point brings it down to earth with some fantastic everyday scenarios, like, for instance, someone being positively apoplectic with anger after being cheated, or a coach throwing his clipboard in an apoplectic fit. Things that we can all relate to.
What's fascinating is the sheer variety of contexts where we see this word pop up. Make Your Point even mentions Tara Westover using it in her memoir, Educated, to describe a look of, pure fury. And then you have these more surprising examples from The Guardian. Apoplectic, Yelp reviews, even apoplectic online dating profiles. It seems like when people really want to get across that volcanic level of displeasure, apoplectic is their go-to word.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's like angry just doesn't cut it sometimes. You need that extra something, that sense of almost losing control that apoplectic provides. And Make Your Point gets it spot on, describing it as semi-common and highly dramatic. Perfect. They even bring up Cato from the Hunger Games, going absolutely apoplectic, a fantastic image of teenage rage just boiling over.
So just to summarize, we've seen that while apoplectic has these fascinating ties to a sudden medical event in its past, today it's mainly used to describe this intense, almost overwhelming anger. It's a word that packs a real punch, suggesting a loss of control similar to its original, more serious meaning.
It does. It's a word that grabs your attention and it doesn't let go. It's a word that evokes a powerful image, and it's a word that, it's certainly stuck around.
And with that in mind, here's something to consider. Given that historical connection to a sudden physical incapacitation, does using apoplectic to describe extreme anger, does it maybe subtly suggest a similar internal disruption, a temporary loss of rational control? The next time you hear or use this word, think about that echo of its past and the sheer intensity it conveys. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Absolutely. And until next time, keep exploring those fascinating words.